Well, a plan that's going to fix the last 13 years of Conservative failure would be nice.
What does that look like?
Well, it looks like a Labour government, to be honest, Kay. I'm not
Well, he's not going to do that. So
no. Well, I mean, there's a whole host of things that we would want to see. We welcome the suggestion there'll be a tax cut for working people. We've been calling for that in the Labour Party for some time. But the fact of the matter is that, on average, people are paying £4,000 more a year in tax under the Conservatives. And so a couple of £100 off a year will be good, but they're still going to be down £3,500 a year. And at a time when the government's taking more money from us than ever before, people at home will be asking, well, what am I getting for that money when public services are on their knees and the economy is not heading in the right direction?
We believe a huge increase, relatively, in the minimum wage. They're starting to chip away at you.
Well, the Labour Party introduced the national minimum wage. We support it.
They're boosting it.
And we support
highest in a decade.
We support that. Mm-hmm. We support that because we know that people on the lowest wages have been struggling during the cost of living crisis. But inflation is still double what it needs to be. The cost of living crisis is still an issue for many families across the country, not least in respect to the food bill and their energy bills. And so, a quid and a bit increase in national minimum wage is good.
10% increase.
Great. Welcome that. But we need to see much more action on getting down energy bills, more action on tackling inflation and more action on the cost of living crisis.
Were you taken in by what people now seem to suggest was flying a kite when it came to inheritance tax? It doesn't look as though that is likely to even have a sniff in this autumn budget.
Well, it's always been flying kites on everything every other day, and you've been asking me every week what I would do about each one of them. Mm-hmm. And that's why I've said in the past, let's wait and see to see what they say on Wednesday. I mean, there's been so much pre-briefing.
Not saying that this morning.
Well,
you're biting this morning.
Well, I'm just trying to be helpful. I mean, there's been so much pre-briefing, I'm not sure what's left to say, and we're going to need to wait and see what the budget says later this afternoon. But the fact of the matter is all too little, too late. 13 years of Conservative economic failure. People know at home that on every measure, inflation, cost of living, national debt, tax, the direction the country's going in, the Tories have failed, and they're just not going to be able to turn it around at this stage.
OK, perhaps you could be helpful with this as well then. How good is this Chancellor compared to other Conservative Chancellors?
Well, look, the Conservatives have been quite good in the past at saying that when they get a new Prime Minister or a new Chancellor, and I've lost track of how many they've had now in the last 13 years, that it's kind of year zero for them. I mean, that's an unacceptable answer. 13 years of Conservative failure is a consequence of 13 years of the Conservative Party failing. So, whilst I buy the argument and there's legitimacy to it that Jeremy Hunt is, more capable than Kwasi Kwarteng, the fact is people are paying more tax, paying more for their mortgage. The country's heading in the wrong direction because of 13 years of the Conservative Party failing. I'm less interested in the personalities and more interested in the fact the Conservative Party have been so hopeless over the last decade.
Good news coming from the Middle East today.
Great news, and it'll be a huge relief to the families involved to know that some of their loved ones will be coming home. It's good news that more aid will be able to get into Gaza as part of this long humanitarian pause. But it's clearly been stated by both Israel and Hamas, this is not an end to the war in the Middle East, and so there's more work to do.
I'm sure you've been monitoring what's been happening with the COVID inquiry. So Chris Whitty, they got a little bit testy with him on occasion. Yesterday, he was on the stand, if that's what we call it, all day. He talked about the first lockdown. He said that we went into that a little bit too late. We're going to be hearing from Jonathan Van Tam later on today. Listening to what we've heard, it's basically raking over the coals. Do we really need this amount of money spent on an inquiry?
Inquiries such as this are important on the basis that by the end of it, you learn some lessons. We all know that lots of Conservative ministers, whether Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, Matt Hancock as Health Secretary or others, were not prepared, were inadequate in their performance, dubious questions about their ethics and morals. We all know that because we lived it through the time. And the inquiry is, revisiting a lot of that, fine, but the test for success for the inquiry is how do we make sure that if we face a similar challenge in the future, the government, the country is better prepared to deal with that than it was in the past.
Years away, though, isn't it, those conclusions?
It is. It takes time to go through all of them. I mean, there are WhatsApp messages, documents, lots of witnesses. If you're going to do this properly, I know from when I used to run select committees, you get huge amounts of evidence. It takes time to get through it properly. It's right they have the time to do so.
Have you turned on your disappearing messages on your WhatsApp?
I don't think I know how to.
I'll help you.
Thank you.
OK, it's great to see you. Thank you.